So you bought yourself the MXR Bass Synth, you plugged it in, and it doesn't sound like that. As a matter of fact, it doesn't sound like the demos that you hear online, and I understand. Listen, what you just heard, I built from scratch. No presets, in live mode, and by the end of this video, I promise you, you'll be able to build sounds like that yourself. If we haven't met yet, my name is Ted, and I talk bass. We're going to go through everything in this pedal, every knob, every hidden setting, everything that you should consider for tracking, all right? So I'm going to build every sound in live mode. So if you're on TED Talks Bass right now trying to figure out this pedal and why it doesn't sound like you expect, stop scrolling. There are timestamps below this video, and everything is super easy to navigate. Bookmark it, come back, use it as a reference guide, right? Share it with other bass players, share it in the forums and all that good stuff. Of course, gently massage that like button and the subscribe button, okay? It ain't rocket science, it's pocket science. Let's go on and get into it. Real quick, before we get started, I want to tell you what I'm playing through. I'm playing through a Marco TFL, Alder, Rosewood. I'm going to use a 5-string because, with the active passive, so it's easy to, give you a full range of demos. But the only thing that I'm going straight from my tuner into the pedal. I have a vintage octave over here and a filter. Those are not on. So the only thing that you're going to be hearing is the synth, okay? No other pedals are in front of it. So you got a clean signal. Everything you hear is going to be the pedal and nothing else. First thing we're going to talk about is power. I haven't really seen a video get into the power, and this is a power-hungry pedal. It draws 330 milliamps, and most standard pedal board daisy chains and cheap power supplies are simply not going to be able to deliver that. So if the pedal is acting weird, if it's glitching out, if it's cutting out, or if you're hearing like a hum, the power supply is the first thing that you ought to check. I don't even know how to pronounce the name here. Kiosks and Link DC5 Power Brick was recommended to me by Mel Brown. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about specific power supplies, but everything that I mentioned in this video is going to be listed below. They will be affiliate links, no extra cost to you, but it helps the channel and funds videos like this. The pedal ships in 5-string mode. If you have a 4-string bass, you're going to get slower tracking for no reason. This is probably the single most impactful thing you can do within your first minutes with this pedal. So in order to affect the tracking, we're going to hold down the shape knob, right? Fully counterclockwise is 5-string bass. That's where it defaults. Noon is 4-string bass, and fully clockwise is guitar, but it's a monophonic synth, so one note at a time. I would be remiss if I said do exactly this one thing and it's going to fix your tracking. There are too many variables in that, and there are things that you're going to need to alter in your playing. And I don't know what you're playing, but you need to be realistic about the simple mechanics of how sound is produced from a string versus how it's produced on a keyboard. The physics aren't the same, and that just is what it is. Now, we'll go deep into tracking technique a little bit later. The next thing we're going to look at is the gate sensitivity. A noise gate is like a door that opens only when your signal is loud enough. Below a certain threshold, it stays shut. That's how it keeps unwanted string noise and hum from triggering the synth. So while you're in the shape menu, hold the shape knob and turn the cutoff. This is the gate sensitivity, and it controls how responsive that noise gate is. The default works in most situations, but if your notes are cutting off too early, turn it up. And if you're getting those ghosted triggers from string noise, turn it down. This is also a global setting. And one thing that the manual tells us is that the sustain of a note is independent of these settings. Once a note is triggered, it'll ring as long as it's ringing on the instrument. This only controls how the pedal detects the start of a note. So if a note is dying early, turn it up. If it's, you get ghost triggers, turn it down. That line I may not play that if I'm using a synth there. I may not play that. It may be more appropriate. Now I know that you're hearing the sound of my strings through the mic. I'm running directly into a very inexpensive Yamaha interface, so you're hearing raw sounds. Okay. Let's experiment with that a little bit. So I know that that's not working, and that noise gate, this is where I'm going to adjust. So again, if your notes are dying too early, turn it up. If you're getting ghost triggers, turn it down. This is a $250, somewhere about, digital synth pedal for bass. It's not a Moog. It's not trying to be a Moog. If you need the exact sound and feel of a $5,000 analog synthesizer, this ain't going to be it, okay? What this pedal is an accessible, tweakable, gig-ready bass synth in a standard pedal enclosure. All right, it's for bass players who need synth sounds on their pedal board without carrying a keyboard. Cover bands, worship players, session musicians, anybody who wants to add synth textures to their rig, right? And if you learn the secondary parameters that I'm about to show you, it goes way deeper than most people realize. This isn't a toy. It's just different from a keyboard, and we have to be realistic about our expectations and learn the tool. Synth bass doesn't exist just in funk music. It exists in dance music, electronica, pop, worship, and a lot of other genres. So understanding synthesis, even just a little bit, and getting vocabulary for the kind of sounds you want to create, that's super helpful, especially in live mode. So you're building from scratch in live modes, and there are no presets to lean on. They're a little bit more tweakable on the fly. By the way, before we talk about signal flow, I want to mention that only 64% of the people watching this channel are subscribers. So I'm trying to get that silver play button. So why don't you do your boy a favor, hit that subscribe button. So here's the path. Your bass signal enters and two things happen simultaneously. One, the pedal detects the pitch of a note, the pitch of the note you're playing, that's tracking. Two, it generates a synth signal using that detected pitch to drive the oscillator. The oscillator's raw sound passes through the filter, which is shaped by the envelope, and then modulation adds movement. The mix knob mixes your dry bass with the synth, and compression evens it out. Then it hits your amp. So why does this matter? Because when something sounds wrong, you can trace it. If you have bad tracking, that's your input detection. Muddy tone, filter. No punch, check your envelope. Knowing the signal flow means that you can diagnose problems instead of randomly turning knobs or throwing the pedal out the window. So let's go into the primary controls deep dive. We're going to go through every visible control and demonstrate it in live mode. I'm going to put all of the knobs starting at noon. Okay. Again, your shape knob, I keep calling it a knob. Your shape button selects the oscillator waveform. Again, I like to start with that sawtooth wave. All right, this oscillator selects the raw character of your tone before it touches anything else. Now, we've already heard the three waveforms. I start with the sawtooth. It's the most versatile and easiest to hear the filter changes on. Now, the voice knob, which I would call a secondary or additional oscillator, that is going to add it adds harmonically tuned oscillators, right? You can think about this as a secondary oscillator, as an additional oscillator rather. It adds harmonically tuned oscillators for thicker and more complex tones. This is like a thickness control. Hear the difference? So it stacks oscillators harmonically related to your note. If you want bigger synth pad sounds, turn that on. If you want cleaner, more defined single oscillator tones, then turn it off. Right? You hear that? It's thicker with the voice on, and it is cleaner with it off. All right? The actual volume of those added notes, that's controlled in the hidden voice menu, and we'll get there. Next thing we're going to talk about is cutoff. This is probably the most important tone control. And we heard this in the synthesis section. Low settings are dark and sub-heavy. Mid-range is warm, present, and musical. That's a sweet spot for most playing. High is bright and aggressive. Now here's a pro tip. Cutoff interacts directly with the envelope. If the cutoff is wide open, the envelope has nowhere to sweep. Okay? So if we start at about 9 or 10 o'clock and let the envelope do the work, right? Now, resonance boosts gain at the cutoff. The Quack control. This gives that synth gives synth bass a quacky, almost talking quality. Low is like smooth and subtle. Mids, a noticeable peak, a little bit more bite and definition. That's, you could start talking about, that's like the funk zone, right? And high is more aggressive. Almost sounds like one of those Daft Punk songs. Right? So that's what the resonance does. If we turn the cutoff to 10 o'clock and the envelope to right around 9 o'clock. We're going to full wet. You hear that quack? You hear that quack? Let's turn it down. We want to turn it all the way up. I'm going to turn the cutoff down a little bit. Now that still sounds a bit aggressive, but we can still shape that sound. High resonance plus a fast envelope. That's where you're going to kind of get into your Stevie Wonder, Herbie Hancock territory. All right. So did you drop it? Drop your guesses in the comments. You know what song this one is. Drop it in the comments if you know that one. Envelope. Okay. Envelope, filter attack, decay. Again, full counterclockwise is off. We turn it to noon, we get a medium sweep. Want to turn it all the way open, or nah, let's do about 3 o'clock, 2 or 3 o'clock. Slower, more ambient. And remember, the envelope knob is only half the story. The hidden parameter that controls the envelope direction is coming up. So stick around or bookmark the video. Our mix knob, as the name suggests, blends dry bass with the synth signal. Fully counterclockwise. Right, you barely get anything. I wouldn't say 100% dry bass, but you know, synth is generating. You just don't hear it as much. Ew. For live, I like to have it around, 12 o'clock. Of course, if you turn it all the way, you get that full synth, just like it says on the box. So again, for live, I like to stay around noon. You can keep your natural articulation. Full wet, maybe for recording or dedicated synth parts. Now let's talk about the submix. This is the sub octave. Now this is best on the A and D strings, but you season to taste, if you will. This is going to add a synthesized octave below your note. So for instance, I'm going to turn this resonance down. I forgot to turn it down. These knobs, I will tell you, a little bit goes a long way, right? Turn that submix up a little bit. Right now, if it's muddy, the sub is trying to produce frequencies that most bass cabinets can barely handle. All right. And on the low B, it might get a little out of control, might get even worse. All right. So use the sub strategically. The next thing we're going to look at is modulation. All right. Mod is chorus plus filter LFO modulation. LFO stands for low frequency oscillator. It's an oscillator that's too slow to hear as a note. Instead, it creates a repeating wobble or sweep. Now, when this is applied to the filter, the cutoff moves back and forth automatically, and that's what creates a rhythmic wah-wah effect. So I'll turn that mod all the way down. We're already getting some stuff that's really usable in live mode. All right. Watch what happens when I increase the modulation. I'm just going to play an open D string. Can you hear it? That's your modulation, all right? It's a combination of chorus and filter LFO. 0 is static. When you turn it up, you get width, shimmer, and movement. Again, this is another one where a little goes a long way on bass, all right? There is a hidden parameter that lets you control the blend between chorus and filter LFO, and we'll get there. All right, so we've gone through every primary control. Let's go on and build something from scratch. So I got everything at 12 o'clock now. We're starting fresh. We're going to use that sawtooth because, again, I think that's really, for me and my taste, is the most versatile. And like I was saying before, you know, you have to season this to your own taste, your own musical situation, okay? So, again, sawtooth, most versatile. We're going to start with the cutoff at 9 o'clock. And I want the envelope to do the sweeping. Resonance, we're going to, let's put it about right here. Let's turn the volume up. All right, and then we're going to turn the mix full wet. Let's go on and turn, let's play with the sub knob a little bit. Big difference, right? Let's turn that Submix up. And now let's put in that that voice for thickness. I'm going to actually turn that Submix up a little bit. We're going to add a touch of mod for width. And I'm going to pull my mix back. Listen, that's a gig-ready synth bass tone from nothing. No presets. You understand every parameter that got us here. Check this out. I'm actually going to turn that off. Now, I like this and I want to save it. I want to keep it. So let me show you how saving works, because there are some things that you need to understand. All right. There are 3 categories of settings on this pedal. First, there's the global settings. These persist automatically. Tracking mode, gate sensitivity, and output mode. You set those one time and you forget about them unless you reset. Global settings are tracking, your gate sensitivity, output mode. Second, live mode. That auto saves your switch states, voice on or off, which waveform, and all secondary parameter values. Those survive when the power's off, but it does not save knob positions. Mix, cutoff, resonance, envelope, submix, mod. Those are always going to be whatever the physical knobs are pointed at. If you bump a knob, the sound is going to change. All right. Live mode saves. Switches plus secondary do not save knob positions. Third, presets. Presets save everything. Knobs, switches, secondary parameters, all digital. When you recall a preset, the digital values override where the knobs are pointed at. So what you see on the knobs is not what's active until you turn a knob and it picks up. All right. That's why I said at the beginning, what you see is not necessarily what you get. Now, we've built a sound that we love, or at least like, in live mode. And here's how we're going to keep it. Step 1, we're going to hold the preset button for 2 seconds. All right. The next step is we're going to navigate to the preset slot that we want to save it to. Okay. Step 3 is we're going to hold the preset knob down again for 2 seconds. Right? When the LEDs stop flashing, you've saved it. You have to overwrite a factory preset. There is no extra slot. There are 8 slots total. But don't sweat it. You can reset any single preset back to factory at any time, right? You can navigate to it, hold the foot switch, and preset save button together for 5 seconds, and then it's done. Let's check it out. Now we're back to that factory reset. So if you mess anything up and you want to reset the entire pedal, you hold the voice and the shape knob while powering on for 5 seconds and then all come back. Let me show you that real quick. So now we're back to factory. And I just want to show you how quick it is to get back to the sound that we had before. I'm back here in live mode. Remember what I said before. I'm going to start with that sawtooth wave. That's actually closer to what I want. Now I'm going to save it again just so you can see. Got to hold that down. And now that sound is saved. That's a sound that I'm going to use pretty often. All right? So I don't have a problem with overriding the factory sounds. One more thing. If you change a preset from its save state, the LED will flash. That's the pedal telling you that a sound has been modified but not saved. And that's useful on stage if you bump a knob and you wonder why things sound different. As you already know, the pedal ships with 8 different presets, 4 green and 4 red. Those are fine starting points, but every sound in this video I've been building from scratch. If you hold the foot switch down, it enters into preset scroll mode. So we hold it down and then we're in scroll mode. I'm going to tell you, I'm not a huge fan of this. And I do not yet have an additional pedal for this. So I don't use that function very much. If you understand how these sounds work, you can dial in sounds pretty quickly if that's your use case. Now, if you have made it this far, you already know more about this pedal than 90% of the people who own it, all right? But we're not done. We're not even close. This is where a lot of people stop learning, and this is exactly why people, a lot of folks don't get the sounds that they want. There are 12 additional parameters hidden behind the voice and shape buttons. Some owners, they kind of know they exist, and some people don't know that they exist. Every one of them changes the game. All right, so here's how it works. If you press and hold voice or shape while you're holding it, turn a knob. All right, that knob is going to control a different parameter. And when you release that button, you're back to normal. All right, so if we hold the voice knob and turn mix, this controls the volume of the added oscillators. At minimum, the voices are completely removed. Right? Even if the voice knob is on, it's off. Right? So you can get fine control over the thickness. All right? You don't have to go all or nothing. So let's mix that in. Now, if I hold the voice button and turn the submix, this is a setting that I don't really use. This is going to mix in white noise into the synth signal. Subtle settings add an organic breath and makes the tone less digital. Higher setting is going to get really industrial and aggressive. Check it out. I'm going to actually go to a different sound. I'm going to go back to So again, I have not experimented with this particular sound as much. And this thing is not necessarily friendly to do with one hand, but that's okay. All right. Now, if you hold the voice and turn the cutoff, right? This might be the most misunderstood parameter on the pedal. Remember when I said that the envelope knob was only half of the story? Well, here it is. This control is going to control the direction and depth of the filter envelope. Above noon, and the envelope opens the filter. Normal behavior. The note starts dark, it sweeps up bright. Below noon, the envelope closes the filter. There's sort of a ducking effect, right? The note starts bright and then ducks darker. At noon, no movement at all. Now we're going to look at this. I'm not going to talk about it, right? No matter what the primary envelope knob is doing. So the envelope knob sets the speed. This sets the direction and the depth. If your envelope isn't doing what you expect, check here. Most people don't even know that this exists. So let's go to a sawtooth. We're going to put our cutoff around 10. Again, envelope around 9 o'clock. Our mix full wet. I'm going to turn that white noise off. Right? Now, check this out. Above noon, and the envelope is going to open the filter. Normal. It starts off dark, then it gets bright. You hear that? Do subtle movements. This is where you really get into some sound design. And this is also the kind of experimentation that, you know, if you want to do it, you just got to get in there and do it, right? So again, at noon, there's no movement at all, no matter what the primary envelope. See how I tried to play two notes there? Can't do it. So the envelope knob sets the speed. This, again, this sets the direction and the depth. If your envelope isn't doing what you expect, check under the hood. All right? Now let's talk about glide. All right, so voice plus resonance. This is glide, or like portamento on a keyboard. All right? Glide is the time it takes to slide from one note to the next. Zero so zero means instant pitch changes, but even a tiny amount is going to make your line sound more authentically synth-like. Now, you notice that if you've been paying attention, I reset some settings that I had earlier that I need to reset. Because I reset the pedal. But we'll go back to that in a second. You hear the difference? That is, in my world, absolutely unusable. So I would set that somewhere around here. Right? Subtle slide, all right? And that's what starts to make this feel a little bit more like a real synth. Let's talk about envelope, okay? If you hold down voice and turn the envelope knob, this controls attack time for note volume. Woof, let's talk about it. This is separate from the filter envelope, all right? So, voice, zero is going to be a hard attack. High settings, if you have high settings, the notes fade in slow. If you look on your keyboard and you see that ADSR, that's the territory we're in right now. So I want my notes to come in right away. As soon as I play it, I want it to come in. That may vary, depending on your use case. The next one we're going to look at is holding down voice and turning the mod. So voice and mod controls the mix between chorus modulation and LFO and filter LFO modulation. Check this out. We'll turn this all the way down. Just hold long notes. For bass, lean chorus dominant, right? Filter LFO can fight with your envelope settings. Next, we're going to look at the shape menu. So just to review, everything we just looked at was under voice, right? If we hold down voice, we get different parameters for each knob, okay? Next, we're going to look at holding down shape and what we get when we hold down shape and affect these knobs, okay? All right, so now we're into the shape menu. Let me put everything back at 12 o'clock here. We're going to hold shape and turn mix, all right? None too tight, limiting. This controls how the synth responds to your dynamics, For live, some compression keeps things tight and consistent. For recording, you might want to back it off for some nuance. For now, I'm going to actually just turn this all the way off. Next is output gain. You're going to hold the shape knob and turn your submix, all right, plus or minus 18 decibels. Noon is unity. You want to set this last, all right? What I do is toggle the bypass and match the volume. You don't want a volume jump when you engage the pedal. And that was a big surprise for me when I first got it. I'm going to leave it there for right now. So, all right, so now we're going to set the gate sensitivity. We already set this in chapter 1, but I have since reset the pedal, so I'm going to do it again, all right? Remember, if your notes are dying, you want to turn that up. If you get ghost triggers, you want to turn it down. Can't remember exactly where I had it set before. You notice how much that changed? A little bit goes a long way. All right. Now we're going to go back to tracking because I reset. Again, for 4-string, noon. For 5-string, all the way clockwise. But I'm on a 5-string and it ships with 5-string tracking already set. But let's just look at it again. Shape, resonance, fully clockwise. If you're on a 4-string, 12 o'clock, and if you're on a guitar, all the way clockwise, okay? So now the next thing we're going to look at is the dry through effects. Hold the shape knob and turn envelope. So when you turn this all the way off, your dry signal is completely unprocessed. Only the synth goes through effects. When it's on, your dry signal gets routed through the filter, the chorus, the compression, and the gate right alongside the synth. Now, you want to turn this on if you want bass and synth to feel like one instrument. And you turn it off if you want that clean bass sitting underneath. My preference is to have it on. And now we're going to look at output mode. This is global. You're going to hold the shape plus turn the mod knob. True bypass versus a buffered bypass. True bypass means that when the pedal is off, your signal passes straight through, untouched, like the pedal isn't there. Buffered bypass means that the signal still runs through the pedal's electronics even when it's off. That's not bad. It can help maintain signal strength over long cable runs, but it means that the pedal is always slightly in the circuit. Mono is the default, fully counterclockwise. That's true. True bypass, and that's 99% of live situations. Now, noon is wet dry mode. Wet on the tip, dry on the ring of the TRS cable. Buffered bypass. That's amazing for recording two separate tracks. So I'm going to go fully counterclockwise. I don't have an expression pedal to demo right now, so I'll cover that in another video. But in the audio position towards the CTR jack, it acts as a second audio output for the right channel. And this will give you stereo output using regular TS instead of one TRS cable. Now for live, which is how I use this thing most of the time, mono output, light compression, output gain matched to the bypass volume like we just said a second ago, and tracking set for your instrument. The mix for me, I keep the mix, right around 50-50 or 60-40. And you can keep your natural articulation, right? Very rarely do I have it all the way wet, all right? So for studio recording, wet dry output modes, so you get separate tracks, right? Minimal compression, compress in the DAW. If you want to mix full wet on a synth track and then blend with a DI track and your DAW, you can experiment with the dry through effects. Let's talk about why tracking fails. 4 reasons. 1, monophonic detection needs a single clear note. Clutter, buzz, sympathetic ringing from open strings, that's not good, right? Number 2, low frequencies have longer waveforms. So let's get nerdy for a second. A low B string at like 30.87 hertz takes more time to detect than a G at 196 hertz. Now, I was no good at math, but that's physics, right? 3, the wrong tracking mode. Remember we talked about that in chapter 1, 4-string, 5-string. Remember that? Okay. And here's the next one. I know it's going to bite a little bit. Sloppy technique. Unmuted strings, heavy vibrato at the note onset, or sliding into notes. Like I said before, it's really garbage in, garbage out. All right. So here's a 5-step fix for your tracking. 1, your tracking mode. We did that already. 2, your techniques. Your technique. Fix your technique. Work on your technique. You want to play with some intention. You're going to also maybe need to change up where you play some things. Remember this example? I mean, that sounds all right for right here, but that might not be the right thing to do in a band situation. That might be the right thing to do, right? Also, your gate sensitivity. Now, again, I just reset, so I'm going to go back and change some things for myself. But your gate sensitivity is another thing to look at. And then 4, the sweet spot. The best tracking, what I was trying to show you there is A string, 3rd to 12th fret. Above the 12th fret gets a little bit less reliable. Number 5, your signal chain. Don't put this behind other stuff. This pedal comes first or right after the tuner. Now, I've taken out my compressor. So no compressor. I've experimented with it a little bit, but no distortion or EQ before this pedal. Use the onboard compression. I've kind of wrestled with that a little bit, but use the onboard compression. After the pedal, your normal chain is fine. Those effects are processing the synth signal. Also, active basses with hot pickups may need the gate sensitivity turned down. So passive basses with lower output may need the gate sensitivity turned up. If you switch basses a lot, you may need to check, okay? If a really hot active preamp is clipping the pedal's input, then no tracking adjustment is going to fix that. The pedal wants what the pedal wants, and the pedal wants good technique. So again, a little bit of, you got to remember also physics. The lower the note, the longer the waveform. So you might need, if you're writing original music, you may need to write your synth bass parts accordingly. So now you understand oscillators, filters, envelopes, all primary controls, and all hidden parameters. You know how to build sounds from scratch. You know how to save them. You know how to fix tracking, routing, and the difference between a live and studio setup. That's it, man. That's the complete picture. If this reference guide, I don't want to call it a video, if this reference guide helped you, drop a comment and share it. Tell me what kind of sounds you're building or what kind of trouble you're having, or what there's something that you didn't understand, okay? I read every single comment on this channel and I will help you dial it in, okay? If I don't get beat by one of the other bass heads, they'll beat me to the punch and help you out as well, okay? Now, I put together free cheat sheets, the secondary parameters map, tracking flowchart, and starter settings for funk, rock, ambient, and dub. And they are linked in the description of this video, all right? All you got to do is click the link. If you want to go deeper on synth bass, the Synth Bass Cookbook and the Synth Bass for Bass Players course are also linked below. And if you want to level up your overall playing, check me out at Groove School or Bass Note Master. Both are linked below, all right? Knowing your fretboard makes tracking much better because you play with more precision. So if you aren't subscribed, subscribe, hit the bell, more deep dives coming. Share this with a bass player who needs it, and I'll see you in the next one. It ain't rocket science, it's pocket science. Peace, two fingers.